I never believed a simple encounter could change everything until he turned out to be my boss. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The way my heart raced when I bumped into him in that crowded coffee shop. He was nothing like I expected. Tall, striking, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through me. My palms were clammy, and I could hardly breathe as he flashed a smile that sent my pulse soaring. It felt like fate, but I had no idea how tangled my life was about to become. I was already drowning in deadlines, struggling to keep my head above water. My mother was sick, and I was juggling bills and late-night shifts at the diner. Hope felt like a distant memory, slipping through my fingers. Friends had begun to fade away, lost in the whirlwind of my chaotic life. I often spent evenings staring at the ceiling, inhaling the silence, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on me. That's when he appeared, like a beacon of light in the darkness. His name was Nathan. I didn't know it then, but our fates were intertwined in ways I couldn't fathom. The room seemed to buzz with electricity as he introduced himself, the smell of fresh coffee swirling around us. There was an inexplicable chemistry, a pull that drew me in despite my better judgment. The laughter, the shared stories, everything felt so easy, until my phone buzzed insistently in my pocket, pulling me back to the reality I was trying to escape. I looked down, and my heart dropped. A message from my boss, yelling about some file I forgot to submit. I had to leave. Just like that, the moment shattered. I turned to leave, but Nathan's voice stopped me, lingering in the air, soothing and warm. Wait, I'll see you again, won't I? I nodded, even as dread coiled tightly in my stomach. There was something about Hema mystery wrapped in charm. I needed a distraction, a way out of my troubles. But what I didn't know was who he truly was beneath that charming exterior. Days passed, stretching into torturous nights filled with worry and stress. When I walked into the office on that fateful Monday, my heart sank. There he was, standing in the CEO's office, the sunlight casting a halo around him, making him look like a god of chaos. My heart raced with terror. This wasn't just some random encounter anymore. Could my luck really be this cruel? Did the universe have a twisted sense of humor? Everything I had hoped for, everything I thought might be different, was crumbling around me. I was left speechless, caught between dreams and nightmares. The world felt like it was spinning out of control, but he smiled, that same enchanting smile, and my breath caught in my throat. Welcome aboard, he said, his voice smooth as silk, yet layered with something I couldn't quite grasp. How could the man who felt like destiny also be my boss? My brain raced with unanswered questions, fear gripping my chest. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The office buzzed with energy, but all I felt was the cold grip of anxiety tightening around my chest. My gaze drifted to Nathan, and my heart dropped again as he met my eyes. It felt surreal, like a cruel joke the universe was playing on me. Was this what fate had in store? Or was it punishment for desperately clinging to a fleeting moment of joy? Have a seat, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. The way he spoke was confident, almost magnetic. It took every ounce of willpower to approach him, my options weighing heavily on my conscience. Telling myself that I was simply in the presence of my boss should have settled my nerves. But instead, it only heightened my unease. The day dragged on a blur of meetings and assignments, my mind racing with a cacophony of thoughts. I barely absorbed any of my surroundings. My thoughts were dominated by the underlying turmoil of my life outside of work. I couldn't shake the feeling that my worlds were colliding in an explosive mix that was bound to take shape in the worst possible way. During lunch, I found a quiet corner to escape the chaos. My phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with another message from the hospital. A reminder about my mother's upcoming tests. I put the phone down sharply, my heart aching. I tried to breathe through the onslaught of despair, reminding myself of the strength I had to gather for her. As if the world had sensed my distress, a gentle tap on my shoulder pulled me back from the brink. Hey, Nathan said softly, crouching beside my table, his presence both calming and unnerving. "Mind if I join you?" I nodded mutely, surprised he would want to share the same air as me amidst my self-fueled panic. It was strange, feeling seen in a world that often ignored pain. The hesitant warmth in his smile sparked a flicker of hope in my chest, reminding me that beneath the weight of responsibilities, I could still connect with people. He talked about his morning, the chaos of meetings, and for a brief moment, he felt like an ordinary person rather than my superior. I listened intently, laughing softly at his jokes and letting myself hope. But deep down, a warning bell rang loudly in my mind. Was I setting myself up for another painful disappointment? Just as I was beginning to lose myself in the moment, a familiar face appeared across the room. My oldest friend, Sarah, bright and vibrant as ever. I hadn't seen her in months, but here she washed her eyes scanning the office until she caught sight of me. A radiant smile broke across her face, and before I could say a word, she rushed over, arms wide open. "Look at you," she exclaimed, enveloping me in a hug that felt like a lifeline. "I can't believe we work in the same building. You look, well, you look like you've been working too hard." I chuckled nervously, casting a glance at Nathan, who watched curiously. "You have no idea. It's been a lot." A hint of worry flashed across Sarah's face, and I could see the unasked questions forming in her eyes. How could I explain the mess that was my life right now? "Hey, we should catch up. There's so much to fill you in on," she suggested, oblivious to the complicated emotions swirling around us. I wanted to say yes, to lean on her, but how could I burden her with my struggles? Sharing what was really happening felt like opening a door I couldn't close. "Let's definitely plan that," I responded, trying to keep my voice steady. I caught Nathan's eye as I spoke, and an unspoken understanding flickered between us. It tugged softly at my heart, a pathos layered under the chaos of our circumstances. But just as I was about to take the leap into the safety of friendship, my phone buzzed again, this time with the news I had feared. A soft gasp escaped my lips, causing Nathan and Sarah to look at me with concern. It was from the hospital. The results of my mother's tests were in. "I have to go," I murmured, my voice catching in my throat. Panic washed over me, stifling all hope. My brain raced as I leaped up, leaving my uneaten lunch behind. A sense of vulnerability enveloped me, and it stung almost worse than my mother's condition. As I turned to leave, Nathan caught my wrist gently. "Wait, please. Can I help?" The sincerity in his voice momentarily disarmed me, and I found myself torn. Did I let him help? Did I allow someone into my chaos? But the weight of my mother's illness loomed larger than any desire to connect. "I can't," I breathed, feeling the tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "I have to take care of this myself." As I pulled away, leaving him stranded amidst his uncertainty, I caught one last glimpse of his face, its warmth and understanding mixed painfully with confusion. I glanced back at Sarah, who was still watching me intently, her concern tangible. I felt the foundation of my world trembling, and without answers, I stepped out into the chaotic swirl of my reality, not knowing what awaited me on the other side. The air outside the office felt different, thick with a tension that seemed to wrap around my chest tighter than ever. I sprinted toward the hospital, struggling to focus on the road ahead rather than the impending news that awaited me. As the wheels of my mind spun out of control, I replayed Nathan's concerned eyes, the kindness in his voice, and the way my heart had fluttered. How could I have forgotten about my own turmoil? I barely registered the hum of the city around meth, chatter of pedestrians, the honks of cars, the distant laughter that echoed like a mocking reminder of a joy I had lost. My heart raced alongside my thoughts. Dread slithered in, ghosting over my skin like a chill in the air as I arrived at the hospital. The sterile smell of antiseptic hit me first, a constant reminder of the fragility of life. I stepped into the waiting room, and the muted sounds of hushed conversations added to the cacophony in my mind. My mother had been so strong, enduring every test, every procedure with a smile that belied her pain. But now, I was left to face the reality of her diagnosis. In the waiting area, I spotted my father, the lines etched on his face faint but telling. He hadn't noticed me yet, focused on the floor, his hands clenching together as if to cultivate strength. Swallowing hard, I approached him. "Dad." My voice trembled, laden with the weight of unspoken fears. He looked up, his eyes reflecting a maelstrom of emotions: worry, fear, and something softer, a flicker of solace in recognizing a shared burden. I was just about to head in," he said, forcing a smile that faltered at the edges. "Together?" I asked tentatively, needing the comfort of his companionship to navigate what lay ahead. That he nodded, standing up, and we made our way down the familiar corridor, each step echoing with memories of earlier visits, of laughter and stories shared in waiting rooms, now replaced by this gnawing silence. I grasped his arm, anchoring myself in the moment, wishing for warmth to chase away the chill of uncertainty. When we reached the doctor's office, an air of solemnity clouded the room. I took a deep breath, holding in the worry that had bubbled to the surface, ready to spill over. My mother sat up slightly in her hospital gown, her gaze meeting ours with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You both made it," she said, attempting to lighten the mood, as if she could will away this heavy shadow looming over us. "What did the test show?" I hardly recognized my voice, wavering despite my effort to remain strong. The question hung between us, the moment stretching in agonizing anticipation. The doctor, a kind-looking woman with gentle eyes, cleared her throat. "I have some results we need to discuss." Her demeanor shifted, no longer casual, but grave. Each word felt like it struck a bell inside me, rattling through my bones as I braced myself for the impact. As the doctor spoke, clarity faded into a fog of statistics and medical jargon. My heart sank at the prognosis. The reality felt surreal, like I was watching a nightmare unfold from the sidelines, helpless to intervene. I squeezed my mother's hand tightly, willing her strength to leap into my veins, but instead, dread seeped in. "Will you need to start treatment immediately?" my father asked, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "Yes," the doctor replied, her words laid on our hearts like stones. "We'll begin as soon as possible." My mother nodded, maintaining a brave disposition, but I could see the flicker of fear hidden behind her smile. The thought of her facing this battle alone, of me letting her down, was unbearable. It felt as if a void opened beneath us, an abyss we were all precariously perched on the edge of. After the consultation, my father and I joined her, sitting close, hands interlinked in a shared moment of silent acceptance. "We'll fight this together," my mother assured us, her voice trembling despite her words. But deep down, I felt the curtain of despair close in around me, swallowing my thoughts whole. Moments slipped away as I caught sight of the bright nurse, slipping past the door, her smile a fleeting reminder of empathy amid the grief. It resonated like a whisper of kindness in the ear of despair. As we left the hospital, air heavy with unspoken words, my phone buzzed again. With shaking hands, I opened it, hardly registering what it was. A message from Nathan, simple yet charged with the weight of his warmth. "Thinking of you. If you need anything." I closed my eyes, battling the emotions that swelled inside me. How could kindness endure amidst this chaos? He was a beacon, flickering against the storm, but would I accept the light? The hope of him offering support felt daunting, almost out of reach, like a dimly lit path in a darkened forest. The juxtaposition of my worlds was suffocating. The weight of my responsibility to my mother and the budding connection with Nathan battling for dominance in my heart. Just as the enormity of it all sought to crush me, my father's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. "Well, make sense of this," he said, drawing me back into the present. Together, but deep down, that same chilling sensation returned. Where would this lead us? The lingering shadows loomed large, promising a long fight ahead. As we stepped into the cold afternoon, the hint of a surprise rattled through my chest, an unexpected phone call that shattered every thread of calm I had gathered. "We need to come in immediately." My heart raced anew. What did it mean? Frozen, I stood still as the world around me blurred, not knowing if we could rise against the tide about to break upon us. As we walked back toward the parking lot, the echo of the doctor's solemn words pounded against my temples. A storm brewed inside me, thoughts spiraling like leaves in a tempest. I clutched my mother's hand tightly, as if my grip alone could ward off the weight of the days to come. Each footstep felt heavier, laden with the reality of what was and what might soon be. My father's voice resounded in my mind, one thin thread of certainty amidst the chaos. "We'll make sense of this. Together." But what did together mean when faced with the uncertain terrain of illness? How could we forge a path forward when all I felt was the ground crumbling beneath my feet? Once we reached the car, my father's gentle presence offered a momentary reprieve from the brewing turmoil within me. I turned to him, searching his weary eyes for strength, for reassurance that we would weather this storm as a family. "Do you think Mom is going to be okay?" The question slipped from my lips almost unconsciously, but it hung in the air like a pendulum, swaying between hope and fear. His response was slow, deliberate, a cautious note struck amidst the discord. "I don't know, but we'll be here for her." The sincerity in his voice faded against the clamor of my thoughts, interrupted by the piercing buzz of my phone in my pocket. Pulling it out, I felt my breath hitch. A message from Nathan again, his words tinged with warmth despite the overwhelming heaviness surrounding me. "I'm here if you need to talk." What does someone like me say in a message like that? I was teetering on the edge of despair, grappling with fear for my mother and uncertainty about my own feelings. With trembling fingers, I typed a hesitant reply. "Thanks, I might take you up on that." Silence enveloped the car as my father drove, the tension palpable. I stared out the window, the landscape blurring into a collage of indistinct colors. My mind drifted back to Nathan, the way he had been there, steadfast and quiet, offering support without the burdensome expectation often associated with it. As our home came into view, an unexpected wave of nostalgia washed over me. It was the same house I had grown up in, filled with echoes of laughter and sunlight filtering through the kitchen window where my mother once made pancakes on lazy Sunday mornings. Now, that warmth felt like a distant memory, replaced with the icy grip of uncertainty. "That I need to check on your mother," my father said, breaking my reverie as he parked the car. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat, wishing I could find the words to articulate the knot of emotions roiling inside me. When we stepped into the house, the atmosphere felt charged with an unsettling quiet. My mother sat in her usual spot on the couch, a harmless crossword puzzle in hand, the only sign of her battle evident in the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "How was your day?" she asked, a brave veneer masking the worry visible in the fine lines of her face. "Same as always," I replied, too tightly wound to allow my voice the warmth I longed to convey. My moment of resolve, like a fragile bubble, swayed dangerously close to bursting. As I moved into the kitchen to avoid the intensity of her gaze, I felt the floodgates beginning to crack. I plunged my hands into the cool water, mindless of the suds and soap, letting their familiar texture anchor me. This was my comfort: cooking, cleaning, a semblance of normalcy amidst the chaos. The mundane tasks grounded me, but my heart wasn't in it. It was spiraling elsewhere. That a soft knock at the door startled me, jarring me from my thoughts. I exchanged a glance with my father, who raised a questioning brow. I opened the door hesitantly, my stomach lurching as I took in the sight before me. It was Nathan, standing awkwardly on the threshold, a bowl of homemade soup cradled in his hands. The concern etched on his face felt almost suffocating. "I thought you might need this," he said softly, eyes filled with warmth and kindness, brewing a gentle sense of hope. Shocked and touched, I stepped aside, this unexpected intrusion complicating my emotions. "Further, you didn't have to," I murmured, unable to finish the thought. The invitation hung there, suspended between him and my own fragile world that I wanted to. His voice was steady and sincere, offering a lifebuoy amidst my swirling sea. Nathan stepped inside, his presence illuminating the dimness that pervaded our home. With every step he took, I could feel my walls beginning to dissolve, replaced by something decidedly more dangerous: vulnerability. As he handed me the soup, I fought the urge to tell him everything: the fears, the darkness lurking just beneath the surface. Instead, I returned his smile with a cautiously grateful one of my own, still unsure of what this connection meant, where it might lead. With Nathan's arrival, the air shifted subtly, so delicate I almost feared to breathe. Yet just as I began to let my heart embrace that warmth, a sharp sound interrupted us, a distant scream, filled with anguish, floating through an open window. I whipped around, dread washing over me anew. Had something gone wrong? What was happening? "Are you okay?" Nathan's voice was suddenly close, grounding, bringing me back. I could see concern etched across his face, the worry swirling deep in his eyes. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. I quickly glanced down to see a new message, the words from my father flooding into my mind like ice water. "You have to come back to the hospital. It's urgent." Panic erupted within me. eclipsing the momentary solace Nathan had offered. My breath quickened as I met his questioning gaze, uncertainty twisting into despair. What was happening? What awaited us next? The world around me blurred as I read my father's message, the weight of his words pressing down like a lead blanket. The urgency in his tone made my stomach twist into knots. You have to come back to the hospital. It's urgent. Panic surged within me. Eclipsing the warmth Nathan brought so quickly turned to cold dread that I felt as if the ground had shifted once more, this time beneath the delicate threads of hope I had begun to weave. What does he mean urgent? I thought desperately, glancing back at Nathan. My heart raced, each beat merging fear with the undeniable need for reassurance that I could see the confusion etching lines across Nathan's face as he took a step closer, concern etched deeper into his brow. What is it? He asked, his voice a low murmur that cut through the chaos in my mind. I swallowed hard, fighting back tears, and forced the words out. I don't know. I have to go back. I could hear the tremor in my voice, the naked fear that lay beneath the surface. Without giving it another thought, I spun and snatched my jacket from the chair. My movements were frantic, disjointed, fueled by a spiraling anxiety that blurred my vision. I glanced back to see Nathan, frozen in place, his expression a mixture of confusion and concern. Wait, he called after me, but I couldn't slow down. The weight of my mother's fragile state loomed like a thundercloud, surrounding me as I stepped outside, my breath visible in the late afternoon air. I fumbled for my keys, my mind racing with thoughts I couldn't catch. Nathan was just behind me now, his voice softer, more pleading. Please, let me take you. The offer struck me, his sincerity blooming like the early glimmers of dawn. But in that moment, I was too caught up in the turmoil to appreciate it. No, please, I half-heartedly protested, my voice cracking. I can't, let me help you. He pressed, moving closer, still holding that bowl of soup like a shield between us and the chaos. His presence felt like a warmth I could cling to, yet I hesitated, unsure if I could accept help without feeling like a burden. Taking in a breath, I finally nodded, sensing that I needed him. We slipped into his car like two actors re-entering a stage, the weight of our shared silence speaking louder than any words we could say. I clenched my hands tight in my lap, the reality of the situation crashing over me in waves. Nathan's steady grip on the wheel gave me some semblance of calm as we drove toward the hospital. He glanced over at me, then back to the road, and as if sensing my fear, reached out to lay his free hand on mine. "I'm here," he murmured, and somehow that simple phrase wove through the cracks of my despair, stitching together tiny fragments of hope. The shiver ran through me, the connection sparking unanticipated warmth in the flurry of anguish. I allowed myself a moment to dwell on the comfort it offered, yet I felt guilt fighting for attention too. My mother was in pain, and here I was clinging to solace like a lifeline. "Is your mom going to be okay?" Nathan's question broke through my spiral of thoughts. The sincerity in his voice made me want to recede even further into myself. It felt wrong to lean on him when my heart was encumbered with uncertainty. "I don't know," I admitted, and just as I spoke the truth that plagued my mind, the reality of my fears struck harder. The possibility of not knowing what awaited us sent a chill through me. What if my breath caught, fear squeezing tight around my chest? What if it's bad? "I can't lose her." Nathan T. glanced at me, his expression a mix of empathy and resolve. "You won't lose her. You all are fighters. Your family faces this together." His voice held so much conviction it felt like a protective blanket wrapping around us. The hospital's entrance loomed closer, the clinical whiteness of its walls reflecting back at us like an ominous beacon. Anxiety thrummed beneath my skin, spiking with desperation. We rounded the corner, and I could see the familiar sight of the emergency room entrance. The air crackled with tension, the gravity of the unknown settling in my stomach. Like a stone, when we finally parked, every second felt like an eternity. I opened the car door and stepped out, the chill of the evening cutting through the remnants of warmth Nathan had given me. But just as I was about to take a step forward, my phone buzzed again, this time with an unknown number. Curiosity competing with dread, I reached for my phone. "Who could this be?" I whispered, but the dread was quickly replaced by confusion as I read the message that appeared on the screen. "We need to talk about your mother's condition. It's more serious than we thought." Heart pounding, I looked at Nathan, who was watching me with concern. The words swam before my eyes, clearer and more pressing than ever. It's more serious than we thought. My breath quickened, and as my mind reeled, I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. "Let's go," I said, my voice trembling but steady, and Nathan nodded, stepping alongside me into the deepening night, into the uncertain future that awaited. The sterile smell of antiseptic stung my nostrils as I stepped through the emergency room doors. The chaos inside felt overwhelming, nurses darting about, the low hum of murmured conversations blending with the sharp beeping of machines. Panic bubbled beneath the surface as I clutched my phone tightly, the ominous message still lingering like a shadow in my mind. Nathan stood beside me, his presence a constant reminder that I was not alone, yet I felt the weight of another layer of dread pressed down on my chest. "What do you think they mean?" His voice was steady, but I could hear the underlying concern. "I don't know," I croaked, the words barely escaping my lips as I searched for any semblance of an answer, something that could bring me back from the edge of this emotional cliff. I scanned the reception area, anxiety curling my fingers tighter around my phone. I need to find my dad. Without waiting for a response, I turned and headed toward the nurse's station, desperate to get answers. I leaned against the counter, my heart hammering in my ears. "Excuse me, I'm looking for my father. He's with my mother. She was brought in earlier. There's been an emergency." The nurse glanced up from her computer, her expression neutral, but her eyes showed a flicker of sympathy. "Can you tell me your mother's name?" It felt surreal to repeat her name, the one ID said a million times before now heavy on my tongue. "Lisa Caldwell." After a moment's silence, the nurse typed rapidly, then looked back at me. "Please have a seat. They'll notify him that you're here." Her words were meant to be reassuring, but they only heightened my anxiety. The waiting area seemed larger than it was, filled with forlorn faces echoing the same desperation I felt inside. That I sank into a chair, and Nathan settled beside me, his shoulder brushing against mine. I glanced at him, hoping to siphon some strength from his calm demeanor. "Do you think she'll be okay?" I blurted, my voice shaking, each syllable soaked in fear. "Let's focus on getting information first," he encouraged, his hand finding mine once again, warm and steady against my cold fingers. His presence felt like a lifeline, and I gripped his hand tighter, embracing the unspoken bond that grew between us amidst the chaos. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Each tick of the clock sent my heart deeper into a spiral of uncertainty. I could feel Nathan's quiet support beside me, yet my mind was awash in dark scenarios. What could they possibly mean by serious? I chewed my lip, fighting back tears as the helplessness threatened to swallow me whole. Then, out of the tension, a voice broke through the noise. "There you are?" My father rushed toward us, his face pale, his eyes wide with urgency. I stood abruptly. "Dad, what's going on?" "The message, your mother," he hesitated, swallowing hard, the weight of words hanging heavily in the air. "We need to talk." My heart dropped, but I couldn't let the fear lead. "What is it?" I pressed, my voice raw with emotion. His eyes darted between Nathan and me. "When the doctors examined her, they found something unexpected," he stammered, each word a struggle that carved deeper lines into his brow. "It's more serious than we anticipated. They believe there's a chance she may need surgery." Surgery. The word felt foreign and terrifying. "What kind of surgery?" I whispered, fear draping over me like a thick fog. "I don't have all the details yet, sweetheart, but the doctors are coming. They want to explain everything to us," he said. His voice trembled, betraying the strength he tried to convey. As my father spoke, I felt Nathan squeeze my hand tighter. "We'll get through this," he said softly, but I could hardly hear him over the fierce pounding of my heart, the heaviness hanging in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Then, I noticed a movement from the corner of my eye. A healthcare team appeared, their faces a mixture of empathy and professionalism, but beneath that lay an undertone of desperation that only fed my growing concern. "Miss Caldwell?" One of the doctors called, looking directly at me before shifting his gaze to my father. "We need to discuss your wife's condition." The words hung between us, thick and suffocating. I felt like I was losing ground, the hospital around me fading into a blur as I prepared for the impact of the news that awaited. Suddenly, Nathan stood, bringing me along as if he too felt the necessity to confront the looming darkness. We moved closer to my father, the three of us forming an implicit shield against whatever turmoil lay ahead. But as we approached the doctors, a figure I recognized caught my eye. An old family friend stood at the edge of the crowd, watching us with an intensity that sent a jolt through my chest. We didn't speak often, and confusion enveloped me as his expression toggled between concern and something deeper, something unspoken. And just as I was about to call out to him, a wave of realization swept over me. I felt a tug in my heart, not just at the looming fear for my mother, but at the implications of this encounter, a ghost from my past so entwined in my family's life that my heart raced with both apprehension and something more. I turned back to Nathan, the weight of everything settling on my shoulders. "I just want my mom back," I said, and with those words, the emotional cliff I stood upon teetered, threatening to send me crashing down into the unknown. As the doctors began to speak, my breath hitched, each word they uttered chiseling away the last remnants of my composure, and I knew that whatever happened next would change the course of my entire existence. In the sterile silence that followed the doctor's call, I clutched Nathan's hand with a grip so tight I feared I might break his bones. My father stood rigid beside me, the weight of uncertainty etched deep into his features. The doctors approached with expressions that seemed rehearsed but failed at disguising the anxiety swirling in the air. "Miss Caldwell, we appreciate your patience," one of the doctors began, his voice steady yet not devoid of emotion. I could see my father's shoulders tense up, as if preparing for an onslaught of unwelcome news. "Your mother has been diagnosed with a serious condition, and we need to discuss the implications with you." The words "serious condition" echoed hollowness through my mind, reverberating painfully. I wanted to respond, but found that my voice faltered in the face of reality. I just wanted to protect my heart from what he was about to say. Nathan's thumb rubbed soothing circles on the back of my hand, grounding me even in my depths of despair. "We've identified a growth that requires further investigation," the second doctor interjected, a subtle catch in her throat. "We need to perform tests imaging that will help us determine the next steps. If it indicates malignancy, we will need to discuss surgical options." The air left my lungs in a rush as I struggled to process this horrifying possibility. Nathan's hand tightened around mine. He didn't need to speak for me to feel his solidarity. "When will we know more?" I gasped, haunted by images of the worst-case scenario playing on repeat behind my eyelids. "The test will be conducted immediately. We will update you as soon as we have results," the first doctor assured, but I could see the shadows of uncertainty cloud his eyes. I knew what was left unsaid, that time was of the essence, and with each passing moment, the situation could worsen. As the doctors turned to leave, a soft, familiar voice called out, breaking through my web of confusion. "Hey, is everything okay?" It was Alex, a childhood friend, his warm eyes searching mine with genuine concern. My heart ached, partly from the revelation that he was here, but more so because of the unyielding fear consuming me. "Alex," I stammered, caught between relief and sorrow. I opened my mouth to explain, but the words stuck, lodged amidst the tears blurring my vision. "That I heard about your mom," he said softly, stepping closer, trying to encircle me with his presence. "I'm here for you." In that moment, a flicker of kindness illuminated the darkness surrounding me. It was just a brief moment, but it reminded me that I was not alone, that even in the intensities of life's turmoil, there still bloomed fragments of hope. My father turned to Alex, his eyes narrowing slightly, but there was a hint of gratitude as well. "Thank you for being here," he murmured. The unexpected alliance seemed to breathe new strength into him, pulling him from the edges of despair. Before I could gather my thoughts or delve deeper into the confrontation brewing in my chest, a nurse approached and whispered urgently, "They're preparing your mother for the tests. You can see her for a moment if you like." Without hesitation, I nodded, moving instinctively toward the direction of the rooms. I could hear Alex's footsteps behind me, the echo of my father and Nathan shadowing closely. The walls felt confining, as if they were closing in, amplifying my fear, but I pushed through it. As we entered the room, the sight of my mother, pale and fragile, sent a new wave of anguish crashing over me. She was bandaged and attached to an array of wires and monitors, which provided a clinical reminder of the very fragility of life. I rushed to her side, ignoring the prickle of discomfort that crept up my spine. "Mom," I choked, attempting to maintain my composure. Her eyes fluttered open, and a small smile caught the corners of her lips, an echo of the warmth I always cherished. "Sweetheart," she murmured, her voice strained but laced with love. "I'm okay. Just tired. Tired." The word struck me as a simplistic bandage over a gaping wound. I brushed her hair from her forehead, and despite the gravity of the moment, I felt surprisingly calm, as if my presence could serve as a shield against the tumult awaiting us. "You'll get through this. We're all here," I reassured, the words spilling out even as doubt loomed in my heart. Just then, Nathan stepped forward, squeezing my shoulder gently, while revealing a soft smile meant only for me. "You've always been the strongest person I know," he said, his voice low and steady. "You'll get through this together." As my mother's hand instinctively reached for mine, I felt a surge of warmth and courage envelop me. But then the door swung open with great force, and we were all jolted back to reality. In walked the family friend who had lingered in the shadows earlier, his expression wavering between concern and something deeper, unreadable in its intent. "I'm sorry to intrude, but I have to speak with you." About his voice trailed off, leaving an unspoken heaviness hanging in the air. My heart pounded. Curiosity ignited alongside the possibility of conflict. I was caught in a web of uncertainties while the truth loomed just above my reach, begging to be uncovered. "About what?" my father asked, stepping forward defensively, instinctively protecting us. But there was no hiding from the waves of fate that pushed ever closer. "About your mother," he began, locking eyes with mine as if searching for a connection, "and some things you don't know that could change everything." In that moment, I felt the ground shift under my feet, a prophecy of the storm yet to rage and the depth of revelations soon to unfold. The tension in the room thickened, as if the walls themselves were drawing closer in anticipation of the words yet to be spoken. I felt a chill creeping up my spine, a mix of dread and unease as I stared at the family friend, his face a mask of resolution. My father, standing protectively at my side, looked as though he were bracing himself for a sudden impact, the way a parent prepares for a storm. "What do you mean, change everything?" I could barely force the words out, each syllable trembling on my tongue as I felt the blood rush from my face. I could scarcely focus on the monitors beeping steadily at my mother's side. "I can't say too much here," he replied, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. "But what I know, it's about your mother's condition. It's more complicated than they're letting on." Those words struck me hard, filling my mind with shadows and unspeakable fears. My mother lay vulnerable and frail before me, and the thought of something being hidden beneath layers of medical jargon made my chest tighten. "What do you mean?" I pressed, my heart hammering in a frantic rhythm. "What do you know?" He glanced nervously at my mother, who appeared oblivious to the weight of the conversation, her eyes fluttering in and out of consciousness. "There's something in her past, something that might be relevant to her current health issues. You need to know what it is before it's too late. Please, just tell us," my father insisted, the intensity of his voice revealing the strain he was under. "What are you talking about? What does an old family secret have to do with her illness?" The family friend took a deep breath, as if forging himself with some intangible courage. He cast a glance at Nathan and Alex, who had shifted uneasily, feeling like intruders witnessing a family's unraveling. "It has to do with a history that involves her family," he explained, urgency pulling the corners of his mouth down. "It could be tied to genetic predispositions or even something darker." A shocked silence enveloped us, filled only by the rhythmic beeping of machines and the faint whir of the ventilation. My heart ached for clarity, yet the more I listened, the more tangled the threads of uncertainty became. I glanced at my mother, her peaceful exterior clashing with the chaos swirling within my mind. I wanted to scream out, to break free from this nightmare where knowledge held the keys to salvation or destruction. Why haven't we heard this before? I dared to question, my voice low but charged with desperation. Why would someone keep this from us? He ran a hand over his face, exhaustion rapidly replacing the resolve he had mustered just moments ago. I didn't mean to withhold it. You have to understand, your family was trying to protect you, to shield you from pain and uncertainty. Don't you see? That's not protection. It's deception. I felt the heat rising in my chest, the bitterness pooling in my throat as deep-rooted anger flared up within me. How could they leave us in the dark like this? The thought of my mother having her own battles hidden, what do I even know of her struggles? Just then, my mother's eyes opened wide, her voice barely above a whisper. What's going on? What are you all talking about? The air grew thick with panic. I felt like a juggler with too many balls, all my emotions, all my fears, threatening to drop to the ground. The family friend stood frozen, and my heart sank further. Should I shelter her from the truth? Was that his intent? Or was yet another layer of darkness slowly unveiling itself? Mom, nothing. It's just, I stammered, fighting to find the right words to shield her from the torrent of implications hanging precariously between us. Everything's going to be okay, Nathan interjected, his steady gaze resting on me, somehow grounding while amplifying my tumult within. In that moment, his hand found mine, closing around it, a small but powerful reminder that we didn't have to navigate this labyrinth alone. My mother scrutinized my expression, searching for assurance, her eyes wide with uncertainty. What aren't you telling me? Before I could answer, the family friend took a hesitant step closer, his voice uncharacteristically soft. It's important to trust the doctors, but just as essential to explore whatever history could affect your treatment. I can help you both. There are people who know things. If you want to know more, if you're ready to uncover this truth together. Sudden footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, interrupting our moment as a swarm of medical staff rushed past us, their urgency radiating like a countdown. Anxiety gripped my heart. What if this was our last moment with her before that truth could come to light? What if we lost her before we could confront what lay hidden beneath the surface? Torn between wanting to press for answers and protect my mother from the burden of knowledge, I could feel the weight of unseen choices pressing heavily on me. Just then, as the chaos intensified around us, a nurse slipped into the room, a look of startled concern on her face. We need everyone to step out for a moment. We have to take her for the tests now. The looming decision hovered in the air like an unsolvable riddle, and as reluctantly as we complied, stepping away from my mother's side, uncertainty wrapped itself around my heart like a vice. Just before I turned to leave, I spotted the family friend's steady gaze, locked on mine with a mixture of determination and sorrow. His words reverberated in my mind. I can help you. Suddenly, I felt a spark ignite within me, a flicker of defiance against the shadows of doubt that loomed over us. I needed to chase this thread down, to unravel the secrets that had long been buried, and perhaps even to guard against the darkness that had suddenly become so personal. Driven more than ever, I turned toward Nathan, who was waiting just outside, his supportive presence a balm for my restless heart. We need to find out the truth, I murmured, the commitment solidifying within me. But as I turned back to the room one last time, a sudden cry broke through the sterile air. My mother's voice rang out, desperate and raw, as she yelled out for me. Ella, please come back to me. The urgency in her call sent a spike of dread shooting through my veins, and I rushed back in, heart racing, knowing that whatever lay ahead for our family would require the deepest reservoirs of strength and resolve. I had yet to uncover. This was a journey fraught with shadows, and the truth, whatever it might hold, lurked just beyond the next corner. The sterile hospital walls, painted in muted pastels, felt more suffocating than before as I rushed back toward my mother's bedside. Her panic-stricken face cut through the chaos like a siren in the night, igniting an urgent fire in my chest. I clutched onto the edge of the bed, my heart racing. Mama, I'm here, I replied, my own voice trembling as I reached for her hand, a lifeline in an ocean of uncertainty. What's wrong? Her breath was shallow, the rising tides of fear evident in both her expression and the erratic beeping of the monitors surrounding her. Don't leave me, Ella. I need you here, she pleaded, her eyes shimmering with unspoken fears. I promise, I vowed, squeezing her hand tightly. In that instant, everything else, the secrets, the looming darkness, faded into the background, eclipsed by the fierce love radiating from my mother. They're just going to run some tests. It's going to be okay. She closed her eyes momentarily, as if summoning strength from somewhere deep within her. There's something I need to tell you, something I have kept from you. About our family, she whispered, voice wavering. That one sentence unraveled a whole host of fears and fears unspoken. The air felt heavy with the weight of what could be revealed. I held my breath, not wanting to disrupt this moment of vulnerability, yet desperate for answers. Please, Mom. I need to know, I urged softly, feeling the room grow colder as shadows loomed closer. Before she could speak further, the same nurse hurried back in, concern etched on her face. I'm sorry, Ms. Albright. We really need to start the test now. Just a moment. I protested, torn between my mother's frightened gaze and the relentless demand of the medical staff. Can't you give us a minute? I know it's hard, but we can't delay. It's for her safety, the nurse replied gently, but there was a firm resolve in her eyes that I couldn't argue with. I glanced back at my mother. Her expression had shifted from fear to something more profound, a hint of resignation, perhaps. Ella, we'll talk later, I promise, she said, her voice now steady but tinged with sorrow. Biting back the urge to protest further, I stepped back, allowing the nurse to facilitate the process. I watched helplessly as they adjusted the equipment around her and began their work. It felt like watching my own heart being pulled out, each tick of the machine humming a different note of dread. Through it all, the family friend lingered just outside the room, his presence casting a shadow that felt both comforting and menacing. I remembered his promise. He could help us unravel the truth. But at what cost? As my mother was whisked away, I turned and ran into Nathan, who had anxious eyes reflecting his own worries. I'm scared, Nate, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. The struggle I felt within, a tempest of doubt and urgency, threatened to spill over. I know, he said, enveloping me in a hug that felt like the only safe haven in this storm. We'll figure this out together. Whatever it is, you're not alone in this. His words dug deeper, a salve to my fraying nerves, but the tension in my gut told me our path was perilous. Even in the comforting embrace of his concern, I couldn't shake the feeling that something much darker was lurking just around the corner. As we waited in the dimly lit waiting room, the primal fear of losing my mother gnawed at my insides. I was about to break, but from deep in my heart, I understood that knowing the truth, every twisted secret, was the only way to reclaim the pieces of my world. That I pulled out my phone, the bright screen casting a glow so stark against the encroaching darkness of the hospital. A message from the family friend blinked at me, beckoning me to meet with him in the cafeteria for urgent matters. The apprehension surged, but curiosity was a fierce fire, propelling me forward. If I'm not out in 10 minutes, call me, I instructed Nathan, who watched with a blend of curiosity and a protective edge. He nodded, and as I left the waiting room, a fresh wave of uncertainty enveloped me. The cafeteria bustled with medical staff and families, laughter mingling with hushed conversations, the chaotic energy a stark contrast to the gravity of my thoughts. I spotted the family friend at a table in the corner, his expression heavy yet hopeful, and slid into the seat across from him, my heart thundering in my chest. Thank you for coming, Ella. I know this is overwhelming, he began, but the air shifted. Something heavy pressed upon me, as if the truth itself loomed like a storm cloud on the horizon. Just tell me what you know, I urged, urgency mingling with the storm of emotions whirling inside. That he leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. It's about your mom's family history. There's something significant, something you need to prepare for. Just as he was about to reveal the truth, the cafeteria doors swung open violently, and a young man barreled through, a look of panic sewn across his face. Eyes wide, he scanned the room, and for just a moment, our gazes met. Then he pointed directly at me, his voice ringing out into the chaos. Ella Albright, you need to come quickly. It's about your mother. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to follow him, dread coursing through my veins. The moment felt essential, pregnant with the promise of both revelation and catastrophe. As I rose to my feet, the family friend stood too, his face shifting from concern to something bordering on dread. Ella, wait. You need to know, but I was already moving, swallowed by the crowd as the young man beckoned me through the cafeteria, the weight of his eyes pressing into my back. Whatever awaited me, it felt like the culmination of everything, the secrets, the heartache, the hope colliding into an unavoidable moment. Where is she? I demanded, fear knotting my throat as we exited the cafeteria. Just follow me, he said urgently, and I felt the world around me tilt as we rushed down a sterile corridor. Each step felt both critical and hauntingly fateful. I could feel the tendrils of truth drawing closer, yet uncertainty flared like wildfire around us. This was a moment where everything could change, and as I raced ahead, fueled by desperation, dread, and a flicker of hope, I knew something monumental was about to be revealed. I burst into the room, my heart hammering, and found my mother unconscious on the hospital bed, surrounded by medical equipment that was both familiar and terrifying. A team of doctors was already in action, their hushed and hurried voices unfamiliar to me, creating an unsettling rhythm that echoed through my chest. The urgency in the air felt like a current, pulling me under, and I wanted to scream, to break through the chaos. Is she okay? What happened? I gasped, inching closer as the medical team worked. A nurse caught my eye and held up a hand. Just give us a moment, she said, her voice warm yet firm. We're assessing her condition. I felt like I was floating outside of my body, watching the scene unfold but unable to intervene. The doctors communicated efficiently, a language laced with specialized terms and worry that spun around me, leaving me dizzy. I couldn't take my eyes off her, the way her chest barely rose and fell, and the pale hue of her skin that didn't match the vibrant spirit I knew. Suddenly, I heard the low beep of a monitor shift, a warning sound that crawled under my skin and set my heart racing. The air thickened, and I felt the world narrowing into a tunnel where all I could see was her frail figure. Panic set in as I realized how fragile life is, how every moment counts in this battle against fate. Her vitals are dropping, one doctor said, urgency anchoring his voice as he adjusted a machine. We need to act fast. Stop, I cried, a wave of desperation clawing at my throat. What are you doing? Why don't you just let us say goodbye, Ella? Nathan's voice broke through the chaos as he surged into the room behind me, a breath of fresh air amidst the suffocating dread. You've got to hold on to hope right now. Remember what we talked about. You're not thinking straight. He reached for my hand, his warmth anchoring me. I glared at him through a haze of tears. Hope, you don't get it, I whispered fiercely, the weight of grief pushing against my chest. This is my mom. I'm scared, Nate. What if I lose her? What if my voice cracked, breaking under the pressure of unspoken fears? Then you need to fight for her, he urged, his grip tightening on my hand. We both do. I looked from Nathan to my mother's still body, squeezing my eyes shut as the tears fell freely. A wave of helplessness washed over me, but buried beneath that devastation, Nathan's words began to melt through my fears, taking root and igniting a flicker of determination. The thought of losing her didn't sit right with me. It felt foreign and unacceptable. The nurse turned to me, sincere compassion filling her eyes. We're going to do everything we can to help her. But you need to hold on to that hope, Ella. It's part of the healing process. Her words resonated like a pulse. Maybe I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I needed to trust, and that meant stepping forward, stepping into the unknown. No, I said, wiping my tears furiously. I won't let go. I can't. Turning to Nathan, I took a shaky breath. We fight together. I'm asking you to stay. He squeezed my hand, his expression resolute. The doctors were still buzzing around like fireflies, but now I found clarity amid the chaos, and I wouldn't back down. We would be a shield for my mother, a united front against whatever darkness lay ahead. It felt like an eternity, but slowly, the frantic energy in the room shrank away into clearer voices amidst the frenzy, as the medical team continued their work with renewed urgency. Then, as if time held its breath, the doctors began to stabilize her. I watched intently, my heart slowing with each small improvement, the rhythm of her chest matching the quickening cadence of hope that soared within me. Finally, after what felt like both a fleeting moment and an eternity, my mother's eyes fluttered open. Relief flooded through me, electrifying the very air. Her gaze met mine, and for a moment, the world fell away. Ella, she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. I'm here, Mom, I said, rushing closer, our hands intertwining in a hold that felt stronger than any fear I had ever faced. You're going to be okay. We're all here for you. We'll get through this together. In that magic moment, the chaos around us seemed to melt into distant echoes. The weight of the unknown was still there, but it felt lighter, somehow, buoyed by love and the fierce connections we had forged through hardships. There would be battles ahead, but there was also comfort in knowing I didn't have to walk this path alone. It started to become clear. Life is filled with shadows and light intertwining, a perpetual dance of hope that reminds us to cherish every heartbeat. As I held my mother's hand, a soft smile grew on her face, one that spoke of resilience and the unbreakable bond of family. We were still standing, still fighting, and the truth of our connection was the bedrock upon which we would uncover whatever lay ahead. That I took a deep, steadying breath as we navigated through this newfound purpose. Together, I whispered, looking at Nathan and my father as they stood sentinel beside us, bound by a shared promise. Together, we would face whatever truths the world threw our way. And with that, I felt my heart swell. "We've got this," I stated confidently, knowing that love had an uncanny way of lighting even the darkest paths. With unwavering faith, I stood ready to embrace the truths we would uncover together. As the monitors continued to buzz softly around us, I refused to let the weight of uncertainty dim the flickering light of hope igniting within our hearts. In the end, it's the love we fight for, the bonds we navigate through storms that will guide us home, reminding us that sometimes it takes facing the darkest truths to finally understand the light of what truly matters most. Together, I echoed softly, for all of us to hear. We were never meant to do this alone.